Hello, I would like to inform you that what you're about to listen to are our views and comments from the hosts and guests that only reflect their own view and not the community's as a whole. You're also committing to hire us at some point in the future, whether or not you want to or you like our work. I hope you enjoy the podcast. And Eddie, play the banter section.
I'm way too neurospicy for that shit.
Oh man, I swear I'm starting to discover that I might be quite neurospicy myself, but I think I'm like
you're starting to. It's low key kind of obvious from a mile away, but
wow, thanks. I was going to say like Nando settings. I'm on like a lemon and is it lemon herb, lemon and lime? I can't remember, but yeah, no lemon herb. It is lemon herb. But yeah, so you're saying I might be a medium? Don't tell me I'm hot.
Mildly spicy.
You actually spot people who are like not neuro spicy then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay then.
You kind of learn to pick them out over the years because you become friends with them much easier when you're neurospicy yourself.
That's very true. Yeah.
Also, within the cosplay community.
Yeah.
Neurospiciness is almost a prerequisite.
I love that you looked at me and went, yeah, I get on with this guy. Hello everybody, this is the Talk About Podcast, a weekly podcast on cosplay, Comic-Con and everything else. I am your host Eddie, and this week we are talking about disability within the cosplay community. Joining us on the podcast is Shadow Bright of Shadow Bright Cosplay. Woo!
Woo! Hi! God, I feel so hyped up now.
I know, we're on the hype train here. We are going to go forward.
To live up to this.
Yes, although you have just called me out for being a bit neurospicy, so...
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It's a compliment. Take it.
Do you know what? I will take that as a compliment, actually. I will take that as a compliment. But no, I think I knew I was, slightly neurospicy in some way. The reason I bought myself one of those... fidget spinners, but not the original fidget spinner that goes around in a circle. Mine's a magnetic slider thing over two metal plates, and I just honestly just been playing that for a whole month, and I've worn out the magnets already, and I feel bad.
a good fidget goes a long way.
Oh, really does, absolutely really does. Just to say, hello, Shadow. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're. There's a couple of things I will do when one I have a new guest, but they'll also do a 7-day checkup just to do a mental welfare check. But let's do the first question is I always ask is how have we met? How do we know each other? And it's quite simple. It's because it was quite recent in my mind, unless you've met me before, which I don't think so. But we met at EGX last year, and we were introduced by Chapman of LPC Photography. Do you remember?
I think that's the first time we met consciously.
Consciously.
I have definitely met you before.
What? No, don't say it like that.
But I'm taking that as a compliment because you didn't recognize me. And that means I did good at the cosplay thing.
Right, okay, hang on. Right, so I will say this every time. I don't know if I've said this I'm sure I probably said this on the podcast. Every cosplayer is a fucking chameleon, and don't come to me like I know who you are. You really have to narrow it down to possibility of one or two person. You have to either tell me a cosplay that we've shot together, or a story that's happened, or something I've said to you that I could have not said to anyone else. So,
we actually met the last con before lockdown. When I was wearing Alex Straza, we met outside. And I particularly remember you because I am a chef originally, and I thought food and cosplay was such a fun combo. But I get this fairly frequently when people just straight up don't recognize me from one day to the next, including my own friends. And I take it as a huge compliment because that means I'm doing the cosplay thing really well.
Yes, you are really doing the cosplay thing too well. too well. Okay, I feel really bad. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. It hurts. But okay, all right, okay. But I mean, let's just talk about you just a little bit more? Because obviously,
Mm-hmm.
people who are probably listening to this on this audio podcast, they're probably working out. They're going, "Huh, Shadowbright's not from this country. You got a bit of an accent." I mean, would you mind just talking about where you're from?
So I'm from Holland originally, and I came to the UK about a decade ago with the intent to stay for 6 months. And then I met a boy, and that was a decade ago.
So this boy is that's it. That's the reason. That's the only
Yeah, he's
reason.
my like obligatory fluffy-haired gamer boy. He's real cute though.
So this is so he's keeping you hostage. That's what I'm hearing. That
Yeah.
he's keeping you hostage. I mean, blink twice if you need help.
Oh no, he's real cute. He looks after me very well. It deals with all my like weird shenanigans. Makes an excellent cosplay boyfriend.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I was going to say, if you did blink twice, there's nothing I could do to help you anyway. You're blinking to the wrong person. I'm like, I don't care. This is nothing to do with me. Oh man. No, thank you. I just want to like clear things, just in case people going, this accent I just don't recognise. A lot. And I've known a few Dutch cosplayers actually who live in the UK, and it's quite interesting. And I've been to Dutch Comic Con about a decade ago. So have you been to Dutch Comic Con yourself?
I haven't actually. I actually started going to events like Elfia, which is more sort of LARP focused. I didn't start going to Comic Cons until I came to the UK because the UK doesn't really have anything like Elfia. And kind of fell into the UK cosplay scene, made a bunch of really wonderful friends, and kind of snowballed from there. I went from going to like one event a year to like 10 events a year.
That is usually the case. That literally, it's the those who have listened to my podcast know this story, but just come out of it was just the last few years of uni days, and friends said, "Oh, do you want to go to Comic Con?" I went, "Nah, I don't want to go. I don't want to be seen to be the Asian dude who does computer science, who's single, likes anime, and also goes to Comic Con. I don't need that extra string to my bow." Oh God! Little did I know I was going to enjoy Comic Con so much.
Yeah, I was very committed to the nerd aesthetic when I was a teenager. I got bullied to all hell because that was before like cosplaying Comic Con was cool.
Yeah,
that was before glasses were cool. So I remember going to my first event when I was 12.
Oh man, I wish I did go when I was younger actually, so that I can embrace Comic Con a lot sooner. And then yeah. Anyway,
was it a much different event then?
Oh, definitely. I think it would have been different then. Yeah, I don't think it wouldn't have been as big now than it would have ever been. So I mean, look, things happen for a reason at a certain time. You can't change the past, so you might as well embrace the now and the tomorrow, really. So
exactly.
Yeah. So now that we've done your introduction, we know who you are, and then you're hopefully welcome back to the podcast whenever you like. I would like to then ask you, how's the last 7 days for you? How's life been treating you?
It's been interesting.
Oh,
I guess this is the life from someone whose immune system craps out fairly regularly. I got a cold, which then led to a double ear infection, and that was 3 weeks ago, and I still can't hear out my left ear. But other than that, I'm doing good.
I'm just amazed because I did say to this before anyone who sends me emails to say, why did you drag this poor lady onto your podcast and make her do a podcast? I actually gave her an out. I did say, if you don't want to do this, we can do this another. She goes, no, it's absolutely fine.
But it is though, like if I stopped doing anything anytime my body malfunctions, I'd never leave the house. Like that's just the reality of having a body that doesn't function very well, and I don't let it get in the way of having a life.
Oh, that's a really good what's the word? Outlook on life. Actually, that's a really good positivity. I think really good positivity.
Yeah, I have two choices. Like I can sit at home and be sad, lonely, and miserable, or I can kind of get on with life, and every once in a while it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I really applaud that. I really do. I like that mentality. Sometimes, I mean, there are days where you do just need to have a proper shit day and just do fuck all. But the
Absolutely.
I mean, this is. I'm not telling people do they need to do this, but whenever I get ill, I always do the thing of, can I stand up? Can I move? Right, that means I'm well enough to go to work. I know I feel like shit, but if I can move, I'd rather not. I know this is bad, but I know I should just, if I'm ill, just take the days off work. But
Yeah.
my brain just goes, nah, just go to work. You'll be fine. I'm like, why? But yeah, I do regret that. Yeah. So yeah. But you're recovering well. You are. The infection is
It's slowly getting better. It took 3 rounds of antibiotics to get rid of a cold, but when my GP was like, "Yeah, your immune system's just a bit of shit," I was like, "Great, thanks. That made me feel so much better."
Thanks, life. Thanks, body. I hate you, but we are in it together. So let's get on with the podcast. We are going to be talking about the disability within the cosplay community. Now, I have done a podcast like this many years ago, early days of like the podcast era. But I felt like I should bring it back because Shadow was going to do this panel at Anime Con UK, and I really was like, I would love to do this on a podcast as well, so that it's one stored for posterity for life, but also I needed content for my podcast, so I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, all right. So we know who you are. We know where you come from. We know that you've been to cosplay. You've been to Comic Con at a young age, but I very quickly, just a brief overview. I mean, how long have you been cosplaying for, though? I mean cosplay, not like Halloween costume, but like proper cosplaying.
20 years.
Fucking hell! Sorry. So let me just take a sip. What? 20 years?
Yeah.
Whew.
I went to my first event when I was 12. I started cosplaying when I was 14. I'm 34 now.
Do you know what your first cosplay was?
Yes.
Oh, go on then.
So bearing in mind, I started going to Elfia, which is live action role play, music, things like that. So my very first like homemade costume was this little fairy thing, and we at this point in time we were making wings out of like drugstore tights and coat hangers. And I didn't have a sewing machine, so I decided that I was going to hand sew the entire dress. And the whole thing was made out of the quintessential like shiny satin that we since then have all learned not to use. So yeah, I did a little fairy. The one after that was a pirate. But this was in the days before we had EVA foam and Warbler, and like just about when we were starting to get EVA foam tiles from like B&Q.
Yeah.
The floor tiles, but you had to sand them down and they only came in one thickness.
Just to say, other hardware stores are available, just to say.
Yeah.
I know I'm not the BBC or anything like that, but I feel like I need to say things like that.
We were making props out of like paper mache.
Oh wow!
And this was when wood was still allowed. So when I did my pirate, which was the second costume that I did, my little scimitar was made out of balsa wood, because that was still allowed at the time. It was terrible. But I had the fortune of like having my cosplay ugly duckling stage before social media was a thing.
Oh wow! So you're saying you got all the bad out of you before you became good?
I don't want to say it was bad, but you could tell that I was just starting out. My parents aren't particularly crafty, so I was like figuring it out as I was going along. And yeah, YouTube cosplay tutorials were just about starting to surface, but it was the Homestuck tutorial where you put markers in your bath and you just dyed your skin grey. For those of us that are old enough to remember that.
Oh, I'm not being 40 years old. Shit.
Yeah, so it was an interesting time, but yeah, it's been 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, that honestly astounds me, that answer, which then now leads me to the next question, which is, I mean, how recently or how long have you been incorporating your I mean, if you're okay talking about what is your disability, I should ask.
So a couple of things.
Oh,
It's never just one thing.
oh,
So
sit back, kids. We're in for a long one.
I am autistic and I have sensory processing disorder, and I get migraines really badly. My body thinks that being conscious is sometimes optional, and they've never really been able to figure out like why. So I just kind of pass out left, right, and center sometimes if I'm not careful. Then I'm literally allergic to life. I have a bunch of allergies, so I have to like hide EpiPens in my costume and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I'm allergic to grass. So when someone is like, go outside and touch grass, I'm like, bitch, no.
I can imagine the response look back was, oh, okay, sorry, I thought grass was okay, but okay.
Yeah, and then a lot of allergies that I have affect my breathing, which means that growing up my lungs got very damaged, which means my lungs don't work very well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, exertion in general for my body is kind of harder than normal. And apparently, according to my GP, my immune system is a bit shit, which is definitely a technical term.
I mean, you've got to love the bluntness of it. I mean, forgive me for saying this, and I mean this with my whole heart, and I mean this with love and no judgment. How are you still alive?
Spite. Just pure spite.
Excellent. Good. You carry on.
Honestly, there's something safe. I got told that I wasn't going to live past 18 when I was like 6.
Fuck.
And because at the time they couldn't really figure out what was wrong with me. And at that point in time, allergies were around, but not really a thing. Bearing in mind it's like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it took them years to figure out what was wrong with me. And I spent a very large chunk of my childhood in hospital. Like I didn't go to school until I was 6. So a little 6-year-old me was like, fine, if I'm not going to live past 18, at least I'm going to have a life. And just kind of wandered out the hospital. And that attitude has stuck with me the rest of my life. And it serves me very well.
I was going to say, wow, that's absolutely, wow. I wish I had that drive, because sometimes I do, like, I will admit, sometimes I've just sat in front of the TV and just go, yeah, this is my life, fuck it. I wish I had the judge to like just literally take life by the horns and just go for it. It's only like recent I've been going to like cabaret shows and theatre shows in London, which I said for years I should have done that, but I never did. So yeah. Oh god. So depending on how far back you want to go, I mean, the cosplays that you've done, which characters have you cosplayed that has incorporated your disability? Do you pick characters that kind of in line with your disability, or do you try to also, or do you pick characters that kind of can blend in with your disability? If that makes sense.
I will always, when I'm picking a costume, I always have to consider a few things. One being I have to hide quite a few meds on my body because I am too vain to bring a bag with me. So there needs to be space to hide that, which means all the like sort of bikini girl anime stuff is out the window. And I have some issues with temperature regulation in my body, which means that if I want to do like full suits of armor and things like that, I have to cut holes in weird places to kind of make sure that I don't overheat. So it always has to be a costume that kind of allows me to do that. But on the other hand, if there is something I really want to do because I feel passionately about it, or it's a challenge for me, I will just make it work. And sometimes that means changing the design of the character to suit me. Like I did a Warhammer Saint Celestine, and she has a full suit of armor, and I had to cut a huge hole in the back of her breastplate because I kept overheating. And now my Celestine has a cape, even though technically she doesn't, but I don't care. The cape covers the adjustments I needed to make and makes it to me look better. So is it accurate? No. Do I care? Absolutely not.
Okay then, because I was going to say, I was going to follow up with the question: has there been any cosplays that kind of you've had to go, do you know what? I can't do this. I can't make this costume. What's the word? I can't do
bad?
Well, yeah, make it work, do justice, things like that. Or have you just literally gone, I will make every costume to my circumstances, sod it if it's accurate or not?
I have a few costumes that I can only wear for a certain amount of time. And I make very conscious decisions about when I wear those. So I did a big Spirit Blossom Lilia from League of Legends, and she's a little centaur. And I know that realistically, I can only wear her for about 2 hours because she just brings down my energy level so fast because she's very heavy.
Okay.
So I pre-organize with the con ahead of time that most cons will have a space where you can get changed.
Yeah.
You just have to ask. And I organize that I have either a secondary comfy costume or just like PJs. Ready to the side so that I don't overexert myself. And that's something that I had to learn over the years the hard way. And sometimes it kind of hurts my soul a little bit because I've spent months and months and months and a small fortune making a costume that I feel really strongly about. And after 2 hours, my body just corrupts out. But on the other hand, I'm like, it's 2 hours more than nothing. And then I always plan, if I'm going to a multi-day con, I will have one big day where I bring out my big fancy full suits of armor, wings, all singing, all dancing costumes. And then the days either side, I will bring something vaguely comfortable or easy to wear, so that on the day where I am wearing this big costume, I'm not also trying to see the convention and trying to go to panels and things like that. I can just focus on being in the costume, being in the moment. Whereas, and then on the other days when I'm like running around in something like my pajama style Guardian Lux, which you've seen, which is very comfortable. It has pockets.
I can tell how comfortable you are.
Yeah, it's literally socially acceptable pajamas. And I'll wear that, and that's when I go around to see the con, and I go to see the panels that I want, and I go to do my shopping. So it's just kind of like planning ahead a little bit.
Okay. That's quite interesting. So you are consciously trying to, you are literally doing any costume you kind of want to do, but you're so far ahead of thinking. Is this because you've done cosplay so long and you know your own body, you know your own, your what energy level, shall we say, that you plan so much ahead? Do you have to plan so much because of your disability?
I don't have to. I mean, I could just kind of like loose cannon it and hope for the best. I just I'm a little bit too old for that. And I want to have the energy to kind of hang out with my friends and see everyone and and do all the things that I want and not crash out in the middle of day 2. And I find that if I look after myself, everyone has a better time. Because like, don't forget that if I get wiped out and have to go to the hospital, or if I get sick, I'm also taking my husband and some of my friends away from the con as well. And I don't think that's fair. And
I mean, just to say, I mean, if you did crap out in the middle of the day and you had to make, I'm sure they won't mind really, because I think your life is probably more important than Comic-Con enjoyment.
Yes, but I can make my effort to not have to do that.
Fair enough.
And then in the last couple of years, as I've kind of become a bit more vocal about, cosplay and mental health and physical health, I also feel a certain amount of responsibility to set an example for other people. Like there's a lot of really young cosplayers coming into the community that haven't learned the hard way, and if I can help them avoid learning the hard way, then that's worth it to me.
No, absolutely. Whenever I meet a photographer I think I'm not seen before, who I think is new to the scene, I try to like guide them with some of the things that I learned. Even like you said, like young cosplayers or new cosplayers who message me, oh, how much do you charge for photography? I correct them straight. Well, not correct them in an aggressive way, but I correct them by saying, shoots are free at Comic-Con. No one should be charging at Comic-Con at all. And if they
that's
do,
a very UK thing.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started. Every time I put up the question, why would people pay for a photographer or something like that, or would you pay for a photographer? Everyone outside the UK just goes, wait, you don't have to pay? And like going, yeah. And like, oh, we have to pay everywhere. We have to pay in Europe. I'm like, oh, okay then. I mean, sucks to be you at the moment, but that's a whole different ball game, whole different podcast about that. And I can't remember if I've actually done a podcast like that, but if I haven't, I will do.
Different countries, different experiences.
Oh, yeah.
It was not like, if it was just when we were going to conventions in Holland and in Germany, it's more prevalent in Germany than it is in Holland. But if you were to like schedule a shoot with a tog at an event, you could be expected to pay, and you're not paying an arm and leg. I'm talking like €20, like cover costs more than make money.
Yeah.
But if it's just a tog like snapping a picture on the side of the path, you wouldn't be paying for that.
Yeah, I kind of get it. That's a longer discussion for a different podcast.
Discussion for a different day.
Oh, absolutely, no problem. I'm now really fascinated now about your more about your creative process. So I know you said you look at the cosplay, you try to then modify it to your needs and things like that.
Yeah.
But you're talking about things like EpiPens. Is it EpiPen I did here earlier? Yeah. So, and you say you got that on you. So I'm trying to think. Do you plan ahead so much to say that, right, if you say you overheat or you can't body regular, does that mean that your costumes has to be very quick tearaway in a sense?
Yes.
Okay then. I mean, is there something easy to then incorporate to do a quick tearaway of cosplay? It obviously within a safe environment.
It's a skill that you have to learn.
Yeah.
And I learned what worked for me over the years. I use a lot of Velcro and like bicycle clips. And I try to steer clear of like real belts and lace up things, because they take time to undo. So if you ever see like anything lace up in my costumes, it tends to be fake. Okay. It's just there for the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And there'll be like a zipper hidden somewhere. But that starts from like the point that I find a character that I really want to cosplay. I start pulling the costume apart and saying like, okay, I need to hide an EpiPen in here somewhere, and then I need to make it so that I can take it off on my own. I might not be able to put it on my own, but I can take it off on my own.
So you even think that far ahead of saying that you might need you need help to put it on, but you're conscious enough that you know I need to be able to take this off if I need to.
Yeah. Like I'm setting myself up for success. Like the more work I can do ahead of time, the less I have to stress about it at a convention. In the same way that before I go to a convention, I always check if they have like reset rooms. Like MCM has a bunch of reset rooms that I find really helpful.
Oh, is it one of those like in a sense like a quiet room with like the lights darkened but with some sensory lights as well?
Yeah.
I've walked into one and I think that's brilliant. I absolutely wholeheartedly think they're a great room.
People don't often realize because for the nature of them, because they are quiet, they tend to be really out of the way.
Yeah.
So I always kind of check ahead if they have any of those. If not, I tend to call the convention ahead. It's like, hey, is there somewhere I can get away from this just to give my brain space? Because I get really overwhelmed, particularly by the noise of conventions.
Hang on. Sorry, I'm trying to understand how would you ring up a Comic-Con or an organizer, say, do you have a quiet room? I mean, how do you go about that? Do you just ring up their like press department, or is there a specific person you're trying to get in contact with?
Depends on the con. Most cons have some form of contact page that will tell you. I generally go to like the health and safety first aid kind of type person if I can find them.
Okay then.
Because for a while I had medication that needed cold storage. Not anymore, luckily enough, but and most cons will actually have facilities for that. You just need to let them know ahead of time. And there are, most bigger cons will let you give specific instructions ahead of time to like first aid teams at event spaces. So it's kind of just like taking a bit of responsibility for your own well-being and a bit of agency to make your experience good and not.
I'm this is blowing my mind. I'm sorry because I am of a community that isn't disabled,
Mm-hmm.
so therefore it doesn't really occur to me. Is this common knowledge within your community then, or is it something that you're educating people because of how little people know?
I always thought it was. Apparently, it's not. I don't know. Maybe this is kind of my Dutch directness coming through. I just picked up the phone and I asked. Because I want to have a fun convention weekend with my friends, and the more I can prepare, the safer I can be. So yeah, we did a panel at MCM Birmingham where I kind of brought this up, thinking, oh yeah, you should remember to do this, kind of like a reminder.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So I have since learned something new myself and gone, oh, actually, a lot of people don't know that you can do this, and they don't know that these facilities exist. But I'm a very strong believer in kind of having a bit of agency for your own well-being.
Yeah.
And if you can work towards setting yourself up for success, that's really something you should be doing.
I'm trying to go back to the original question because I really want to know how you hide your EpiPen, but this is fascinating me even more. It's really interesting. Your mindset's very, if I look after myself, the rest will sort itself out, rather than turning up hoping for the best. Do you get what I'm saying? There's a real difference of attitudes in that sense. That's absolutely. This is really interesting to me.
I mean, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
The last time I didn't do this, I was at Alfia, reckless teenager. It kind of last minute decided I wanted to go. Thrown together a costume, not really properly tried it on.
Yeah.
And it was heavier than I had planned, and it was wearing me out faster than I was expecting. And the terrain at Elfia is huge. It's acres and acres outdoor. It was cold.
Oh yeah.
And I passed out on a little footbridge that didn't have much of a railing, and I landed in the water.
No.
In a heavy costume. And then I proceeded to be in hospital for a week. So
I genuinely was going to ask a stupid question when I heard you fell into the water. I said, "Did you survive?"
Yeah, I did.
I mean, if you didn't, this conversation is really weird already.
So yeah, and like a little teenage Shadow Bright learnt very quickly that wasn't the way.
Oh, a blessing. Well, glad you're okay now, but yeah, you do seem to learn things the hard way, which is not a great way, but obviously you're now passing on your knowledge to other people, which is great. Okay, let's get back to the EpiPen. So I'm assuming when you say, "Oh, I've just got to carry this Epi," I'm thinking, "Oh, you got a small pouch somewhere," but I'm assuming there's some costumes that don't allow.
Depends a little bit on the costume. So, like my Saint Celestine in the thigh armor, it has like a little holster. So if you look really carefully at the pictures, you can see that the left thigh is slightly bigger than the right thigh, because it accounts for the space of the EpiPen. But you have to really be paying attention.
Okay. Which character is this again? Sorry.
Saint Celestine. It's my big Warhammer armor. It's like massive shiny gold suit of armor with huge wings.
Okay. Oh yes.
I've sewn pockets into capes. My Lilia was great because she has the like centaur butt that was hollow. So I had like a spare pair of shoes, my full like medication kit, all the merch that I was buying at the course, all like shoved up in there. It worked great.
Sorry, I now imagine that this back end of your horse butt contains now a mini portable fridge to put in your medicine. I know you don't need it, but if I don't see that now, if I don't see a mini fridge, I'm going to be disappointed.
No, it was not a mini fridge, but because that costume had hooves that were really, really uncomfortable. I had a spare pair of shoes in there so that I could take the hooves off for a little bit, wear shoes. So there's always a space to be found. I have a friend who is partial to really, really big wigs and keeps stuff in her wig.
Yeah.
And I have the luck of having boobs. That is nature's pocket. So like quite often like stuff gets stashed in there.
No, my friend keeps her mobile phone in her boob.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women do that.
Yeah.
So there's always a place to be found. I just have to be careful that I can actually get to it and I don't hide it away too well.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, but it works fine.
That's fine. Something just popped in my head, and and I will be very honest with you, and I don't know if this offends you or not, or if there's a compliment or not, but when I first met you, I didn't think, oh, disability. I didn't think, oh, I need to treat you any differently, and I know I shouldn't treat anyone differently, and things like that. And it's quite interesting that you, in a sense, pass off. And I'm not, again, don't want to sound discriminatively when I say this, but you don't pass off as someone with disability. You pass off someone quite like me, who's able-bodied. So, are there signs? Because I'm thinking from a photographer's point of view. If I'm about to shoot with someone, regardless if it's like a 5-minute shoot and half an hour shoot, and I know there's some photographers who shoot for an hour. Is there like signs I should be looking out for if they don't want to vocally say, "Oh, by the way, I have a disability that's not visible"? Is there signs that I can look for?
So, like, I consider myself really lucky because I have the luxury of being able to pass for quote unquote normal, particularly for like short interactions.
Yeah.
I can't particularly speak for people with like physical disabilities such as that have issues like standing still for periods of time. I don't have experience with that.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of the stress of shooting comes from my autism and not really understanding what's going on around me if I'm like overwhelmed by stuff. So I would always ask to be given clear instructions. And for me, that generally comes out as like, I don't mind you bossing me about. Like, if I'm asking you for instructions, that's generally for a reason. That's something that's really common in people with similar sort of disabilities, because without the clear instructions, I really don't know what I'm doing, and that can make me really uncomfortable because I can't see what you're seeing. And I think in recent years, it's become more and more acceptable, and that's really great that it is okay to just go, hey, I'm done now. And then as long as you don't go, oh, just one more. No, if I say I'm done, I'm done. And as long as you kind of respect that boundary and don't, because you do occasionally get the talk, it's like, oh, I just want to do this one thing. I'm like, no, I'm done now.
No, I know what you're talking about, because the photographer in me, it's always after that one more photo, that one more, or maybe that pose wasn't good enough, and maybe I can just get a little bit crisper, a little bit more sharper, the look or the pose and things. No, I know what you mean. But
and you quite often, like, if you want to look for like visual signs, I generally pick up on things like eye contact. So I don't, if you want me to hear what you're saying and understand, I am probably not looking at you. Because I find that forced eye contact is so distracting to my brain that it will go in one ear and out the other, and I will have no idea what you just said to me.
Yeah.
You see a lot of cosplayers, I love this, I have them as well. I see a lot of cosplayers wearing earplugs, like loop earbuds. I wear them too sometimes, just to kind of take the edge of stuff. And you know, if you're paying attention to the person that you're shooting with and you see them zone out, just let them. They're just trying to sort their brain out.
Okay, then.
I find that I have like a group of photographers that I will quite happily and comfortably shoot with, because I know that they're not gonna push me out of that comfortable zone or like push me beyond my limit, which means that I have like a group of 7 or 8 photographers that I have all the time in the world for, and then if I meet a new talk, I tend to be a little bit more hesitant.
Wow, how did I get through your filter system then?
Something you read neurodivergent.
Yes, we found that in the banter section that you are a neurospicy detector, and clearly I am one. So
just a little bit, but I like shooting with people like Ben Jones. A lot of people know Ben Jones. He's a lovely photographer and cosplayer, and he's also in a wheelchair, and he always gets it. And half the time he's like, oh, do you need to sit down? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, you could just sit on my lap, it's fine. But he has some great adaptations that he makes to his costume. He has this like awesome Viking cosplay that his shield goes on a magnet on his wheel.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's such a clever idea because he can't lift it for very long.
Yeah.
So he's like, but I want a giant fuck off shield.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna find a way of making it work. So yeah, it like magnets onto the side of his chair instead of onto his arm. And he's like, yeah, well, I have to deal with a chair, so I might as well make it work for me. And I think it's
Yeah.
such a great attitude. So yeah, I'm a little bit more wary of photographers that I don't know than maybe your average person.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I was going to say. I mean, okay, if I know we shouldn't probably do the vice bit. We should do that last, but we'll do it now. If you didn't know me and I approached you, what would be my best way to approach you so that you knew I was safe? What is there anything I could say or do that could convince you in 5 seconds that you go right? Yeah, I can shoot this person.
I think being really clear about what your intent is. Hey, I love your costume. I'd like to take a couple of photos of you. Do you have the time and energy to do that right now?
Oh, I never say the word energy. I think I always say the time. Okay, that's new for me. Carry on.
And take a no as it comes. Because like I don't always look exhausted because I am very good at hiding it, but there are just times where I'm just like done.
Yeah.
So yeah, time and energy is a huge thing, and then being clear about kind of what you're trying to achieve. So hey, I want to get a portrait shot and a full body shot, and I really like this particular part of your costume, so I want to focus on that. That gives me a really clear framework of like, this is what I'm working with. And that comes from that kind of clear line of communication, and I can at that point also determine whether that is something I can achieve or not. Like I once worked with a photographer that was really big on sort of action shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, can you hold your prop up in the air? And I was like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I can swing it, and if it's in the right place when you happen to click your button, yes.
Yeah.
I cannot hold it. So if you come up to me and say, hey, I like your giant sword, I would like you to swing it at me, fine. If you say, hey, I like your giant sword, can you hold it in the air for me? Not gonna happen. So like being really clear about what you want to achieve from step one is great, because that means I'm not going to be forcing myself into a situation that I shouldn't probably be.
No, it's fine. No, I don't understand that. I know this may be a really stupid and obvious thing to ask a question of, but would it help if anyone with a disability that's not visible to actually just say it at the beginning, before the shoot starts, or is it dependent on, like you said, the energy levels that you're at, or the past experiences?
I personally am really comfortable talking about kind of the things that are different about me, but that has taken years of like working on myself and my comfortability and dealing and working with the bullying that comes with that, and I fairly regularly get kind of quote unquote called out. You don't seem disabled. I'm like, okay, good for you. Like I try, that takes a lot of work, and I try very, very hard. So thank you.
Yeah.
But so there are a lot of people that just aren't particularly comfortable being that public and open about it, because it does come with questioning and bullying, and I don't feel like we're obliged to tell the world that something is wrong with us.
Yeah.
Like just because I'm comfortable discussing it doesn't mean I expect that from everyone else. So not everyone is going to be that open about it. Some people don't have a choice. Like Ben is in a wheelchair. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be very, very, very non-observant to to not spot that and then go, could you just come out of the chair, just stand here for a little bit?
For some of us that have the luxury of being able to pass for normal, sometimes the kind of relief that comes from being able to pass for normal is really, really valuable.
Yeah.
And just to feel like everyone else, because the cosplay community is so neurodivergent, to be able to feel like anyone else for a couple of days will literally tide me over for months. So yeah, just because I'm comfortable discussing doesn't mean that
No,
everyone else is.
which is absolutely, that's why I asked, because I feel like you're very open about it, and I'm like, I don't think I've heard anyone else talk this openly about their own condition, barring a few.
Was really hard to do to begin with.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, because you need to feel, from my own point of view, and again, I'm not trying to speak for your community, but from my experience of like my own personal like hang-ups and things like that, it's very hard to get out of that thing where you're thinking people are going to judge me for it, or people are going to, like you said, the questioning that you shouldn't be questioning.
It's not if people will judge you. And but for me, it was a question of, hey, I had somehow ended up with this platform and this voice and this opportunity to speak about it.
Yeah.
Combined with enough experience to kind of be able to deal with the bullying and the questioning and the backlash. I don't want to call it backlash, but
no,
it is.
Yeah, I know you mean.
I was like, if I can be this open about it, I might inspire a few other people that were too scared to cosplay into the hobby. And I have a couple of cosplay friends who came to one of my panels and were like, I didn't think I could, but I gave it a go. I have this lovely girl. She had always wanted to cosplay, but she is an ambulatory wheelchair user. And she's like, if I go to a con, I can't get away with not bringing the chair. And I was like, well, why not build your chair into the costume? And she's like, oh, but what will people say? And I was like, do you care? Do you really care what a stranger's going to say to you? And so she built this ball gown that works with her wheelchair. And rather than attaching the wings that came with that costume to her body, she attached them to the back of the chair.
That's a very beautiful idea.
And it's stories like that make me continue doing this. Regardless of like what some troll on the internet has to say about it.
No, absolutely. I mean, I love the attitude that you're saying that. Why does a stranger care? But sometimes for some people that still matters to them.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time for me to start getting out of my own head about that. It's like that internal narrative that.
And then there's a question of like physical safety.
Oh God, yeah.
I didn't really think about this. It sort of happened in the conversation around these panels that I do. Things like spray paint has gases to pressurize the can that can interact with certain medications.
Yes.
So like I was having people that were like on inhalers for like asthma or allergies or whatever, and spraying spray paint, and I was like, that's really dangerous. You should not be doing that. And people didn't know, but also didn't think to think. So it's part emotional and part like, a bit of physical safety that
absolutely.
I think sometimes doesn't get talked about.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. I know we could talk about this a little bit longer, but let's talk about it a little bit longer. I mean, I was going to say, so one of the questions I've got on my list is basically, what are the positivities that you got from incorporating your disability into your cosplays? Or if not for yourself, have you seen others that have like opened up to you? And I'm not asking you to name names, but have you heard stories where people have gone, because of you, I've incorporated this into my disability into the cosplay, and it's, well, I don't know, has it liberated them? Has it given them a new lease of life? What's your perspective of that?
Well, there's a couple of different elements of that, in the sense that I build my cosplays to facilitate me and my survival through a con weekend. I really like suits of armor or really big chunky things that kind of stick out of my natural frame, because it stops people from touching me. I don't particularly like to be touched by anyone that I don't know. So like I have Oriana from League of Legends. She's a little clockwork ballerina. She has a hard skirt. So I call it my circle of personal space.
I know which cosplay you're talking about. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So people literally can't come into me, which for me is a huge chunk of sensory issues taken away. I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I have a friend, Just Jen Cosplay, who struggles with like really chronic back issues, and she found that if she incorporated a corsetry into her costume, proper like boned corset that kept her back straight and supported all day. Suddenly, you know, it became a 7-hour con day instead of a 3-hour con day. So yeah, it's this building of costumes to.
Just to let the listeners know, that's the husband.
That's my husband who's watching a show. So like the building a cosplay to work for me and with me.
Yeah.
And then there's this other element of like I have adopted a number of like, I want to say young cosplayers. They're not all necessarily physically young, but they're new to the cosplay community that I've met through these conversations.
Yeah.
That picked up cosplay because someone else said they were doing it and they're making it work, that I am so beyond proud of. And I get like so much satisfaction out of this hobby because of that, where like I've inspired other people to kind of try a hobby that I'm so passionate about.
Yeah.
And that find that actually, hey, it's not something that makes my life harder, but it's also something that can make my life easier. And if I can wear a ball gown in a wheelchair and feel beautiful about myself suddenly and go to a convention that I previously couldn't, it's just, I mean, how great is that?
No, absolutely. And to hear this is absolutely amazing that, you know, that the feedback you're getting from people to say you've inspired me to incorporate it rather than hide it. It's brilliant. I mean, I was just to say, I know a lot of able-bodied people or those who don't have any hidden disabilities who struggle to get through a Comic-Con weekend. The fact that you're saying you're embracing it, you're making sure that you look after yourself throughout these weekends, you're doing a lot better than any other person who is like
I guess in a sense for me that can be easier because I'm used to consciously looking after myself. And I know how to kind of pace my body through a weekend like that, whereas someone who is able-bodied, physically healthy, whatnot, is maybe not consciously used to doing that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly jump into a 9-hour con day on Friday, followed up by a heavy night of drinking and 3 hours of sleep, and then you're surprised that on Saturday your body's like, no, fuck you, we're not doing this. So, like, I'm used to thinking about this. That's how I exist.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
It's I think a skill some normies could do it.
Yes. Well, am I a normie? Am I still considered a normie?
I don't know.
Probably I am really still, but I mean, I don't mind being called a normie. I've been called worse. I'm struggling to ask another question because I think you've answered you've spoken so well and so passionately that it's brilliant. But I was just gonna say, has there been a moment where you've gone, like probably from more from a cosplay build point of view, that you're struggling so much to like seeing the end goal with it, like you say, finding a place to hold your EpiPen or your medicine if it didn't require to be fridged to carry over. Does it help to have a posse with you to go with you, or because of your big armors, that's the protection that you need to deal with that? So there's a lot of questions in that. I'm so sorry. Let me break it down again. First of all, during a cosplay build, have you got to a point where trying to find a place to hold your medicine and your EpiPen and things like that, have you just struggled and then just gone, give up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will always kind of think about these things before I start a costume because I'm a very big believer in like not wasting material and things like that. And there are just certain designs where there is no space. There's nowhere to go. Like I would have loved to have done a Spider-Gwen.
Yes.
Ballet for years, but it's a skin tight bodysuit. There's nowhere to go. So not an option, but that's fine. I find this I like every other cosplayer in the world. I have a never ending list of cosplays I want to do, and there's like 50 cosplays on there, and I'm never going to get around to doing all of them. So every once in a while there is just a cosplay where I'm like, I have to say no, I can't. In a shocking turn of events, my disability has disabled me. But it's better to kind of give up there when in the planning stages and not be halfway through building it and go, I'm super invested in this. I have like 300 quid and 800 hours invested. Oh shit, I can't do it. Because I find I did that once or twice and I find that's really soul crushing.
Oh god, yeah.
Whereas if I have to lose a costume in the planning phase, I can be like, all right, fine, move on to the next project.
Yeah. Is it, have you learned to say no more to yourself? And does it get easier, or does it still hurts to say no to a costume that maybe you really wanted to wear?
It's never easy. I think everyone with a disability or neurodivergency can kind of understand when sometimes it can be really frustrating. When you really want to do something and you can see all these people around you that can, and you have to go, I can't. I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at dealing with that frustration and letting myself be frustrated and not pushing myself past the emotion before properly processing it. But I think everyone with a disability can understand when I say that sometimes, there's a TikTok sound that is like, in a shocking turn of events, my disability has disabled me. Because we all get very good at working around our disabilities, that every once in a while you kind of forget a little bit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly something like smacks you in the face. You're like, nah, you thought you had your shit together, but you don't.
Surprise, motherfucker! That's basically what it's saying.
And I think that's where, a good group of cosplay friends is invaluable. I have a couple of people around me that get it.
Yeah.
And that support me. And if I just I'll call Jen up sometimes, I'm really frustrated, can't work it out, just word vomit, and she's like, yeah, that sucks.
Oh man.
And then I feel better.
That's good to hear. That's good to know. Well, so, okay. Now here's the part two to the multi question I was giving. I was like, do you then have a posse with you when you go around Comic Con? I know you mentioned about your big armor builds that keep people away, but do you still need people with you just to make sure, just in case you do like start to lose energy and you need to get out of the costume quickly, or do you still have you built enough of a self-reliance that you could just about get through a weekend?
It depends a little bit. I very rarely will go to a big con on my own. Unless it's a con I'm like really very familiar with. But to be fair, having spent like the last decade in the UK cosplay community, there very rarely isn't a con where there are none of my friends. So and I have a lot of friends with disabilities, and we're all very good at supporting each other and making sure we eat and drink and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I've also built a lot of relationship with the convention specifically. I've done a lot of work with MCM, things like that, where I know people that work at the con. So even if I at that point in time can't immediately find my friends, I always have a fallback of where I can go that I know I'm safe. That's something I organize for myself. I don't expect the con to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should. Like, a con can't control for 10,000 guests each individual safe space. That is completely unachievable. But if you have a bit of agency for yourself and plan ahead, like, hey, what if it goes wrong? What do I do? You'll find that it doesn't go wrong as anywhere near as often. But yeah, I have a lovely group of friends who always look after me and are always up for my weird shenanigans, and I repay them by loaning them my costumes.
No, that's great. That's absolutely great to hear. Sorry if I shouted you by saying, was it surprise, motherfuckers? I'm so sorry. I just realised there's no
okay.
Oh man. We're getting very close to the end of the podcast, but I just want to. I kind of want to ask. I always do the advice question at the end. So if there was. It sounds like you got 3 key points that you probably either want to reiterate again or something that we haven't said before. But what advice would you give to either people with a non-visible disability or even with disability, with visible disability, or people who are looking to work with people with a disability? Is there like 3 things that any tips you would give?
Yes, so that's a difficult one. I'm always very, I'm always like, just do it, but do it in a way that is safe for you.
Yeah.
And don't let it stop you, but be responsible in looking after yourself, saying, hey, I know realistically these are my limitations, I have to work within them. And no one expects you to push past what you're comfortable with. And if someone does, point them out and they'll get yeeted out the community pretty damn quick. Yeah, but yeah, just do it. Don't let a disability get in the way of something you really want to do in your life.
Yeah.
Just be prepared to give it a shape that works for you, and that might not be the same shape as it is for other people.
Yeah.
So yes, that's a big one, and there are lots of people these days in the community that are very open about having different disabilities, and if you want to ask someone for advice on how they manage things, me personally and a lot of my friends that have similar issues have 0 issues with that. As long as you're respectful about it, like I will tell you all my secrets.
No, absolutely. If you don't mind me just jumping in very quickly, I think as a photographer who I think subconsciously, because of my own like learnings from dealing with cosplayers who have allowed me to be in their circles, I think, like you said, if they say no, don't take it personally. If you can visually see they've reached an energy limit, just give them a break. Please don't ask cosplayers, regardless if they've got a hidden disability or not, to hold poses beyond what you. I remember seeing this. I'm sure I said this story before. I remember someone who was in a Spidey pose, bent down, crouched down, and they held that position, and the photographer decided to go, oh, I'm just going to change my lens and this, that, and the other. And I just thought, I know what it's like to hold that pose with the blood holding, pushing in the kneecaps. It's just it's just so painful. I just thought, just release the cosplay for at least 30 seconds, just to get that blood back through the and I just thought, I'm never going to let that happen to me in my care. So, like you were saying about holding the sword out, if they say no, just because
I'm like, I can swing it,
Yeah.
just don't expect me to hold it. It's the holding still that's quite often the problem. Particularly if weird footwear is involved, which in cosplays is almost always is.
Always, yeah. Exactly. So just because, don't think that because you can do it, they can do it. I think that's such a what's the easy thing to mistaken, that because one person could, the other one, it's like, no, treat everyone individually, and there will be similarities, but you can't use the same brush for everyone, type of thing. So and just be understanding. I think is the other thing.
Clear instructions.
Clear instructions, yes, that's the other one I was thinking of.
It's a really big one probably for a lot of people with particularly autism. It can really kind of ground me in the situation and not feel quite as overwhelmed. Really, something that's super easy for a photographer to do that can really, really help a cosplayer, because I can't see what I look like through your camera lens.
No, absolutely.
Particularly if it's a photographer I haven't worked with before.
Absolutely. To be fair, that should be a tip for all photographers anyway, to show either show the back of the camera so that at least they can see what's happening. But like you said, clear instructions, like do the pose yourself. I constantly just show them what I want rather than describing it, because I think I've always said visually demonstrating it's better than describing it.
I love my friend Digital Genki. Everyone knows his little CMVs. He will literally like act it out for you. He's like, do this. It's so great. It makes my life so much easier. Particularly if it's like a video and he's after something really specific.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. No, I've done that myself, and the amount of people have said to me, Eddie, you look so cute doing that. I said, shut up, go away. I have
to put you on a little cosplay next time.
Oh, don't say that. But I have done like the arch back, hands in the air, in a diamond shape. I'm actually doing it now so I can describe it.
Yeah.
And head back a little bit, eyes closed maybe,
Yeah.
And then because if you do it yourself, you can feel that. Well, I can feel the back going now. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Just if then you can say right. When I say go, arch your back, and then you got that rather than them holding it for 30 seconds, they're holding it for 5 seconds, maybe things like that. It's
Yeah.
those small little details like that that could really help someone, enjoy have a better experience in
Definitely.
their cosplays, especially when you're taking photos. Yeah,
Something I've just thought about
go on.
that I shouldn't have to say this, but apparently I kind of do. Don't ask a cosplayer to hide a mobility aid.
What?
This has started happening fairly recently, and I don't get where it's coming from. I was with a friend who she uses a cane, and it's a beautiful piece of carved wood that her grandpa made for her.
Yeah.
And it even went with the costume. She was cosplaying something from Dark Souls. And this dog was like, "Can you just put the cane down?" And I was like, "Excuse me, what?
Jesus Christ.
We're done here." Same goes for like competitions. Like a competition will never hold it against you if you have a mobility aid. If you need a cane, use the cane. If you need a chair, use the chair. If you need earplugs, use them. Like any good cosplay judge, and most competitions in the UK are very conscious of this, will absolutely not hold that against you.
I know we said we were coming to the end, but I just want to talk about the cosplay competition not say very briefly, but let's talk about it as quickly and short, but also as much as we can. So I'm fascinated now. So how have you been a judge yourself, or have you been in a situation?
So this happened at London Comic Con in October. I was judging the Sunday Cosplay Masquerade.
Yeah.
And we had this lovely, lovely girl come in trying to hide her cane from us. And she had made it to go with her costume. But she's like, "Oh, it's not accurate. It's not accurate. I can't stand very well." And she had the most beautiful costume in the world, and she had made the effort of incorporating the cane, which is not something we were expecting to begin with. And someone had kind of given her the advice before the competition that because it wasn't accurate, she shouldn't bring it. And I was like, absolutely not. We're not doing this. Use the cane, particularly because you've gone through the effort of like making it incorporated into your costume. But no one will ever hold that against you. And if you feel like they are, you bring it up with the competition organizers, because they really shouldn't be. Like if I enter a competition in a suit of armor, it will always have a hole in the back where I need to be able to cool my body.
Yeah.
And I might get asked why, and I will say why, and then we will move on.
So should judges ask that question and judge it for the reason why there is, like you said, a hole in the back of your armor? Or
well, if I have a costume that is supposed to have a back to it and doesn't, that question is naturally going to come up in pre-judging, not in the public con hole, in pre-judging on the side room. Like, hey, I noticed your costume is missing a massive chunk. Is there a particular reason for that? Because the reason might just be that I didn't have the time to make it. And I'm like, no, I have a disability. I overheat really easily. This is my solution to that. Fine. Moving on.
Okay.
You won't get questioned on it, or you shouldn't, at least.
Do you think there's a stigma that people think they will get marked down for it?
Yes.
Okay.
I run into it all the time. I get this question a lot when I do panels on disability and inclusivity, because people know that I will occasionally judge a costume competition.
Yeah.
And there's this like obsession with accuracy, and yes, there should be to an extent with the costume, not with the human. Like we're all different shapes, colors, sizes, abilities. I'm looking for accuracy in the costume, not in the person inside the costume.
That's really interesting. You can separate the two. I think for someone like me, who's again, I'll be very honest. Like I said, I'm not. I don't think I've got a disability besides being slightly neurospicy type of thing. But Yeah, I would have thought that's the one and the same, rather than you're
Yeah.
seeing it as two separate entities, which is that's a lovely trait to have about how you see the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't change the way your body is. Like you have to exist in the body that you get, but you can change how you make a costume, and you can develop skills in making a costume. And we're all there to judge the skill of making a costume, not the skill of making a body do something that it's not meant to do. Like,
Wow. And that voice could be given to anyone
yeah.
as well. That's
That
fascinating.
isn't limited to. I hear this all the time where people find a design that they really love and go, "Oh, I'm not that shape," or "Oh, I'm not that. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't make a ball gown." Yes, you can. You have to design. You might have to design it a little bit differently because stuff's going to get caught in your wheels. But
Yeah.
if anything, like if you make a ball gown that works in a wheelchair, and I know how hard that is because your crinoline has to be different, and your underskirts have to be different, and your overskirt has to be an entirely different shape. That is, to me, as a cosplay judge, almost an extra skill. Because anyone can. It's fairly easy to find a pattern and a tutorial on how to make a crinoline for a normal ball gown. But to figure out how that works with your mobility aids and your body, I think people should appreciate the extra work that comes with that.
100%. Definitely 100%.
And if someone needs a cane to walk comfortably and goes through the effort of incorporating the cane into the costume and wrapping it in the same fabric and the same ribbons, as a cosplay judge, I appreciate that. You've made the extra effort. The effort should be appreciated and not held against you because you came out with a disability. Like, you can't do anything about that.
No, absolutely. Agreed. 100%. You can't. You don't. Well, I hope I'm right by saying you don't choose to have a disability. You're born with it. So, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I'm now properly going to bring the podcast to an end. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, that's all. I really was tempted to like say.
It's something that I never used to see, and I'm seeing more and more of, and I hate that attitude so much.
Oh no, absolutely.
Whenever I encounter it from someone, I like smack it down really quickly because like.
Oh, no. Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, it was very easy for me just to go, oh, no, we're going to end it here. But that just triggered me a little bit for me to go, do you know what? I need to ask. I need to keep diving more. So absolutely fantastic. No, so thank you very much for being on the podcast, Shadow. Really interesting talking to you. I feel like I've learned lots. I'm hoping others out there who will either pick up this podcast will learn a lot about building a cosplay, wearing it, how you like build for your own your disability. The cosplay competition never really entered my mind, so it's really good that you talked about that. Thank you very much. If people need to find you on the social medias, where can they find you? And if they're okay to drop you a message if they want to ask further questions?
Absolutely. So I'm Shadow Bright Cosplay on all platforms. And it's always best to message me on Instagram. I'm most likely to see it there. Bearing in mind that I don't always have the energy to kind of respond straight away. Particularly if I'm at an event or I do just have a normal person job too. So yeah, if you send me a message, I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can, but it can sometimes take a day or two. But yeah, if you have questions about making cosplay or making cosplay kind of work for you as a person with a disability, I have all the time in the world to talk about that. I mean, I'm a huge nerd and my special interest is cosplay, so like you'll just make my day better.
Fantastic. No, absolutely. Good. If you need to find me on the social media, if you go to foodandcosplay.org/links, that's where you'll find all my social media links, such as Threads, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram. I'm all there. I'm everywhere. If you go to foodandcosplay.org, generally you'll find cosplay photos that I'm dropping every day. I'm trying to get back into more articles. What else am I doing? Cosplays we like, theme stuff. If you go to foodandcosplay.org/podcast, you'll find other podcasts that I've recorded with different people with different topics. I'm hoping you'll enjoy the chats we do, the discussions we have, the debates that we have. And if you go to no, not Food and Cosplay, if you go to patreon.com/Food and Cosplay, we'll have a podcast extra where we'll speak to Shadow about, well, I'm just gonna make it up. I'm just gonna ask her.
Make it up as we go along.
Make it up as we go. We might talk more about hidden disabilities. We might find out more cosplay stories that she's got. I'm sure she's got loads of stories that
Cosplay horror stories.
Yes, let's do that. Cosplay horror stories. We're going to do that. I know it's not Halloween, but let's do cosplay horror stories. Yeah, let's do that then. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and Shadow's going to say goodbye. So goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.